Point number 6. Here we go. Quarterback time. Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel already learning a lot from the veterans. Of course, this weird 4-way quarterback battle. We don't know if any of these guys will emerge as the long-term answer. We don't know who's going to emerge as the starter. There's some indications as to who it might be. We've talked about that a lot. But the good news for Shedeur and for Dylan is that they have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, who have been around, especially Joe Flacco. And, Mary Kay Flacco's interesting because he's always sort of bristled at the idea of just coming out and saying, yeah, I'm going to mentor someone and I'm going to bring them along. But it seems like he does okay with it. I mean, obviously things in Baltimore were weird because anytime you draft a replacement, it's just going to be weird. But I don't think Joe is like anti-mentoring. And I don't think anybody should expect this quarterback room to be contentious. That's just not usually how it is, as long as everybody's doing their work.
Yeah,
But
and not only
go ahead.
I was going to say not only those two guys, but they are also learning a lot from Deshaun Watson already. And whenever we hear these rookies talk, they mention Deshaun Watson. He is right in that room with them in the meeting room every single day, in the virtual reality room. He is there with them. And so not only are they learning from a former Super Bowl MVP in Joe Flacco and a former Super Bowl winner in Kenny Pickett, but they also have a 3-time Pro Bowl first round quarterback in Deshaun Watson that they are picking things up from as well. And that's very unusual for a rookie quarterback to have 3 guys that can show you things and teach you things and answer your questions and tell you things. And if those 2 guys are smart, if Shedeur and Dylan are smart about this, they will pick those guys' brains and they will ask questions. And if it's not all verbal all the time, they will be watching how they take notes and how they watch film and what they do to take care of their bodies and how they handle their practice week and all those kinds of things. They've got 3 good quality quarterbacks to look up to.
Yeah, and it was fun. Like I saw a quote tweet of somebody, I think it was a Shedeur interview from the rookie premiere. I saw a quote tweet. Somebody was like, oh, the quarterback room at the Browns seems like they're all getting along great. Like, I sort of wanted to be like, well, what do you expect? I mean,
right?
These guys aren't going to sit in there like they're not going to throw things at each other and hate each other and tell each other I mean, yes, they are competing for this job, but they're also coworkers. They're helping each other. It's kind of a may the best man win situation in the end. So I just think that reaction is funny. This idea of like, oh, these guys must hate each other because they're competing. I don't know where that idea would come from, but of course they're going to help each other. Of course they're going to get along.
Yeah, like it just is, I think, how most position rooms in the NFL operate. Like, it's not surprising, and like to Mary Kay's point, I do think it's interesting that the 2 rookies, when we talked to them, did essentially go out of their way to mention Deshaun and him being there. And like, I just think that situation, I know Browns fans don't want to talk about Deshaun Watson, but it is interesting in the sense that I feel like that could be a situation that gets really acrimonious, and it just hasn't, right? Like, from either side, even after the owner at the owners meeting said a swing and a miss, like Deshaun Watson is still there. And I'm not even necessarily saying like, oh, good job, Deshaun, but like, I just think it's interesting from an outside perspective that right now, I think most people would assume, oh, this is going to devolve into some toxicity or Deshaun's just not going to be there. And what's the point? But that's just not the reality. And I think it's interesting. And I quite honestly think like the rookies especially will benefit from that instead of having a ton of drama come into that room, like for that very specific reason.
And I made this point too, real quick. I made the point somewhere, and now I can't even remember where, that Deion Sanders went to bat for Deshaun when he got booed when he was down on the field with the Achilles, and he said that that he was praying fervently for Deshaun Watson. And so there's probably some kind of a connection there or some kind of little bit of history there, whatever the case may be. I'm guessing that that Shedeur will look to Deshaun for some pointers and some tips on some things, just in terms of picking up the scheme and studying and watching film and all that kind of stuff, I think it's going to help them.
And I think too, it's, like Shador's like both of these rookies, but Shador has the right approach and the right attitude, like he's going to, with other guys in the past when it's been, when it's been contentious, right? We're talking about a Johnny Manziel who, well, Johnny was showing up and like just trying to find the next party, right? Like that's not Shador. Shador's going to be there doing the work, doing the job the right way. Dylan Gabriel's going to be there doing the job the right way. And so that's going to earn the respect of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. What's going to harm it is if they look at a guy and they're like, oh, he's not putting in the time. He's not putting in the work. He doesn't care. He is like with Johnny. He's just looking for the next party, or what's he doing Memorial Day weekend? And Ashley, I don't think that's the case with either of these young guys. They know, because they both came from college programs, the big college programs. Of course, Shador, the son of an NFL player who knows what it takes. These guys come from backgrounds where they know how to do the job already in a lot of ways. And now it's about kind of advancing that.
And I do think like the vibe we've gotten from the Browns and everything they've said and everything we've seen, like work ethic is not a problem with either of these guys, I don't think, based on everything we saw them do in college, everything the Browns know about them from going through the pre-draft process and now having them in the building. I think the anticipation is these are two guys who are going to come in and be ready to work. And I think with this quarterback class as a whole, like I don't remember hearing anyone's like work ethic questioned like in a way that Johnny Manziel had issues, right? Like you're saying, Dan. But I think everyone was questioning them because of certain characteristics of their play on the field or certain like physical characteristics. In the case of like Dylan Gabriel's height, even Shador Sanders' height, those were the questions. Like they were pretty much all football related. It wasn't anything about this guy's going to come here and not put in the work, or this guy's a huge like character risk. Everything down the board just seemed like, okay, like, is Jalen Milroe actually any good? Even though he's really mobile, is he going to be able to succeed in the NFL? Right? Those type of things, not just these two guys on the Browns.
All right. So when we talk about a roster in transition, one of those positions is, of course, defensive tackle. 2 years in a row, the Browns have used significant draft capital here. Mason Graham at number 5 overall. But of course, last year they took Mike Hall in the second round. Mary Kay, Mike Hall, the last time we saw him on the field, he was carted off against Baltimore in week 18. Not a ton of updates on it. Andrew has been very, very careful with giving us injury updates. He's even admitted it, that he just doesn't want to say something. He doesn't want to raise expectations and then get into a situation like last year where, these left tackles weren't ready to go. So he's being very careful with that. But your point number 7 here is that Mike Hall Jr. is progressing well. All signs point to him being ready for the season. And of course, as I meant, look, they have Malik Collins, they have Juwan Briggs, they have Shelby Harris, but long term, you want to see Mike Hall and Mason Graham together on the inside of that defensive line, just causing havoc up the middle. And that's what the Browns envision with these two high picks at defensive tackle.
That's exactly what they envision. That's what they're looking forward to. And as we know, they don't expect a lot of complicated stuff from their defensive linemen. It's basically go get the quarterback. And that's what they feel these guys can do. And that is why they are on this football team. This is not a, hold off, eat up a bunch of guys type of defensive line. They want them moving forward. They're not just trying to keep the linebackers free. This is about getting to the quarterback. And they think those two guys can do that together very, very well. They're excited about it. But once again, Andrew doesn't want to make any predictions about when Mike Hall will be back. He's not participating in the workouts just yet. I personally don't think he will be out there until some point in training camp. So they do have Malik Collins, they do have Shelby Harris, they do have some other guys that they can use in there. But once those two guys get together, I think you're going to see a whole lot of power and explosion coming from the inside.
And we did see a little bit of Mike Hall last year, actually. Once he got on the field after the suspension, and then he had another injury as well, a knee injury. We did see some flashes where he was getting in the backfield. He didn't. I don't think he got a sack last year. I can't remember if he got one or not. I don't have his stats pulled up, but you saw him create pressure. You saw him do some of those things. You heard his name a couple of times. So it's there, I think, with Mike Hall, and pairing him with a guy like Mason Graham is only going to help bring that out.
Yeah, I think so too, because then it kind of becomes a pick your poison a little bit, right? And I think what's nice, like Mike Hall's obviously, I think, really versatile too. I'm pulling up his stats right now to see if he did have a sack last year.
He did.
Yeah,
He
got
did have
one
one.
against
Yep.
Cincinnati, in the game in Cincinnati, which I remember that now that we looked it up actually. But I think he's very versatile. He has that quick first step, which people have talked about, and like if you play them together, the benefit is okay if you play those two together plus you have Miles Garrett. Yes, somebody's going to be on that Miles side, but things are going to open up for one of them in that specific lineup. And we know Jim likes to rotate those guys. He'll play 9 D linemen, but I think the fact that Mike Hall has already shown a little bit, like, hey, you can move him around, it allows Jim Schwartz to get creative. And now you're going to throw Mason Graham in, who obviously was elite at getting to quarterbacks for a Michigan team that wasn't so good last year. But I think with Mason, like we all know, he was probably the best defensive player on that Michigan national championship team. And even though Michigan was worse this past year, he was even better. Like this guy is a kind of athletic freak in that way, and this is what he's done really well at a big time program, including when they won a national title.
All right, let's move on to receiver here. We touched on the receivers a little bit. I'm going to combine points 8 and 9 here from Mary Kay's 10 things she was thinking. The first is about David Bell catching passes from Deshaun Watson. And you mentioned, of course, 3 young wide receivers, Bell, who's coming off that hip injury, and then Jamari Thrash and Michael Woods, the second, both, of course, still on the roster. Jamari Thrash, a draft pick from a year ago. Michael Woods, a few years ago. Of course, he was coming back from that Achilles injury last season. So then you also have a point about Deontay Johnson and the opportunity he has. You talk about him as a route runner in the mold of Jerry Jeudy, which, of course, is interesting. That's what the Browns saw in Jeudy to make him such an undervalued asset that they were able to go get. And then, of course, they were more aggressive with Jerry. They traded for him and gave him that big extension right away. But with Deontay, this obviously feels like more of a flyer. But when you look at this receiving core, Mary Kay, who intrigues you the most after Jerry Jeudy and Ced Tillman? Who's the guy that you're kind of like, I mean, is it Deontay Johnson? Is he the guy that you're kind of like, I want to see what he can do? Or is there somebody else that's sitting there that you're like, I'm really interested in what this guy can do with this opportunity?
Well, I think Deontay is the biggest X factor in the bunch because he does have Pro Bowl talent. And those guys just hit differently. When you go out there and you watch them run those routes and you watch them on that field, it's different. There's a different level of ability and talent when you are a Pro Bowl caliber player. And he is that. And I've been saying for a long time that I thought they needed to add another Pro Bowl caliber receiver. Well, they did it, but it comes with a caveat. He's got to keep his head together. He's got to make sure that he puts his head down, that he goes to work, that he learns everything that he can about this scheme, about this system, that he works very closely with the quarterbacks about what they want him to be doing and when. And he can't be spouting off. He can't be pouting. This is almost a last-ditch effort for him. 3 teams gave up on him last year for attitude reasons. This is a beautiful opportunity for him. It's all right there in front of him. The opening is there. Everything is there. They want to believe in him and give him the chance. And now he has to live up to that and rise to the occasion. He's played with Kenny Pickett before. I think that can go either way, but he should use that to his advantage. I think he should work out with him during the break. That's what Jerry Jeudy's been doing. So he's just got an absolute wonderful opportunity to salvage his career here. And if he can do that, and they can get the best settled down version, pulled together version of Deontay Johnson, he can be dynamite with Jerry Jeudy and Ced Tillman out on that field.
if I were one of these young guys, if I were Woods or Thrash, or if I were one of the undrafted guys like a Floria, or if I were Caden Davis, somebody like that, I would like attach myself as best I could to Shador or Dylan Gate. Like I would become one of those guys' best friends, because then it's like, okay, Shador's out here competing. He's in this competition. He's trying to win this job. He knows he can trust me. He's going to get me the football, or Dylan Gabriel's going to get me the football. Like, or Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett. It all depends on who you're going to be working with. I would just connect myself to one of those guys. I would be out there after practice working with those guys and just making sure that this spring and this summer, whenever one of these guys drops back to throw the football, I know they're going to be looking for me, because whether Shador or Dylan Gabriel is going to be a starter or going to be on the backup or whatever happens to these guys, they're going to throw the football my way in the middle of this competition. I'm going to have a chance to kind of make an impact while they're trying to make an impact. So I don't know. They aren't asking me for advice, Ashley, but that's the advice I would give them: is attach yourself to one of these quarterbacks and be their guy.
I think that's good. I mean, to a lesser extent, I feel like David Bell really did that with Josh Dobbs when he was still here. Like, that was the post-practice duo in training camp a couple of years ago. If I was to say a different name besides Deontay Johnson, because I do think that's the guy, for me it's Mike Woods, because obviously he misses all of 2023 with the Achilles, and then there was that suspension thrown in there too. But he was somebody who, his rookie year, they used quite a bit. I think maybe more than people were expecting. Last year, he didn't get a ton of opportunities, and I have his Pro Football Reference page played up. He only played in 5 games, but he came into training camp last year, and I remember seeing him at the golf outing last year, which we were very close to the golf outing this year coming up, by the way. And he just looked bigger. Like, I remember I even said something to you guys, I think at the time, like, man, he looks like he's really gotten in the weight room. So that's a guy I kind of continue to be curious about. And then as I was looking at his stats, he had 7 receptions last year, and 4 of them were good for first downs. Like, I think that's a fairly interesting number in a very small sample size. But he, to me, is the other guy that, like, okay, you're entering year 4, technically your 3rd year, where you're actually available to play. And it's kind of, put up time for them to figure out, what do we want to do with this guy? Do we envision him having a role? But I think physically he's always been very intriguing, and he came in having, like, visibly having added more muscle last year. And I'm curious to see what he's going to look like in the middle of this competition.
All right, let's talk a little Denzel Ward. The last thing you pointed to, Mary Kay, in your 10 things you were thinking, is just a kudos to Denzel Ward, who has been once again at off-season workouts. And it's significant because we're still in that phase of workouts now where it's not like in OTAs, they can do a lot more team stuff. They can do a lot. It's a little more meaningful for some of these guys as far as the work they're getting done. It's not just weightlifting. It's more actual football work. Well, Denzel has been there from the start. It's something he's talked about that's very important to him. And it's interesting. I mean, people come down on all sides with this. Does it matter? Does it not matter? But wherever you come down on it, I do think Denzel Ward being there is meaningful. And I've said it before, just seeing guys who kind of show up to this for this football team, like they haven't accomplished anything. Like, hey, we have big goals, and it starts in the spring. It doesn't start in July. It starts in April. Like that I think sometimes that can be meaningful. So Denzel has sort of become a tone setter, and it's just been this growth that we've seen from Denzel over the last few years of, like, I'm going to be the leader on this team, because he doesn't need to be there. Nobody would blink an eye if Denzel didn't show up. He's earned it, but he's showing up, and it's meaningful.
Yeah, it's really a sight to behold to see how he has grown and developed over the last, I would say, 2 years mostly. And he's become a vocal leader. He's changed up at the mic when we talk to him. He's changed when you even just see him in the locker room and you say hi. He is invited, as we know, Martin Emerson took him up on it, invites guys to stay with him in the offseason and work out with him. We've seen him actually host a trip for defensive players. So he has really taken the leadership piece to heart, and he backs it up by showing up for every single one of the practices in the off-season program. And he does other things. He's got a lot of other interests. He's very much into fashion and some other things, but he's here front and center when he needs to be here. And he's so good for the younger players, not just the defensive guys, but receivers too. It's good for them to have Denzel around to ask, hey, what about this or that? So good for him. They need more guys like that. There are very few great leaders on a football team, and I'm putting Denzel now in that category as a great leader.
Yeah, and whatever this is going to look like this year, and I'm not saying they're going to be this, but I just remember the 1 in 31 years that they were just they emptied that locker room so much of so many veterans, and there just weren't enough leaders. I mean, there were some guys, obviously Joe Thomas was on those rosters, right? There were some guys, but like they just didn't have, I don't think, as much strong leadership as they needed in those 2 years. And this year, again, whatever this, like, I'm not saying this is going to be an 0-16 year or 0-17 year, but what I'm like, if this year doesn't go the way they will maybe want it to go, they at least still have some leadership in there, and they have some veterans that can set the tone, because you're trying to get this to where it's going to be another contention window. And when you have guys who can lead these young guys, it's going to help it move faster. And when you are ready to really start winning again, everybody's going to be ready to start winning because you've set that tone. And Denzel, I think Ashley is one of those key guys, one of those key veterans in this group.
Denzel to me has just become the total package the last few years. I mean, he was always a really good player, right? He's a Pro Bowler, but I do just think like you've seen him step up in that way. You've seen him step up in the community. Like, I think it's worth mentioning. Obviously, he was the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the Browns last year. He was nominated for the League Award. We just got an email today. His skills camp that he puts on at his alma mater, Nordonia, is next Wednesday. He does the skills camp every year for free. Like, that is not a thing a lot of guys do. And I do think he has earned his flowers in that way, right? And I think when he came into the league and they weren't as good, and, Mary Kay wrote that great story last year about him dealing with the sudden death of his dad. Like, that impacted him, I think, early in his career, obviously the end of his time at Ohio State, and you've really seen him grow and make concerted efforts, and obviously everything him and his mom do with the Make Them Know Your Name Foundation to work on getting AEDs in all kinds of places. Like, Denzel to me really is the total package for this team, and I think rightfully so. He is one of the faces of this team, and he's earned every bit of that because of what he does on the field and what he does off the field.
And by the way, it's not easy to be that guy in your hometown. We've seen a lot of guys struggle with like staying home when they get to the NFL. Sometimes that can be really hard. And so Denzel has really mastered that, and he's just that hometown, he's that quintessential hometown hero, the guy that, like I said, still holding that camp every year at Nordonia High School, not far from where I am. Like, it's great. It's been great to kind of see him grow up. And another example of, you forget how young these guys are sometimes when they get drafted, especially here. They draft really young, and Denzel was very young when he got drafted, and had to grow up. Not that he was getting in trouble or anything like that, but just had to grow up as far as like what it takes to be a leader and all of those things. And he's been great. It's been awesome to see. Okay. Hey, it's Memorial Day weekend, and so we do this sometimes. I want to ask you guys, because our listeners are going to be wondering what should they watch this weekend? What should they binge? Ashley, you always have like a million shows for people to watch, but like, what's the one or two things that our listeners need to like watch this weekend when they're going through this long weekend before we get to go out to Browns OTAs next week?
Well, I can say what I'm watching. Should I say? I'll say what I'm watching, which is a reality show, unsurprisingly. But it is The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. It is absolutely wild. I do think it is hard to make a good reality show, a new good reality show with a unique concept. This is that. It's all about mom talk. It became a giant meme last year. How is mom talk going to survive this? Became a catchphrase of sorts on social media. And that is definitely something I am currently binging. I am on episode 4, I believe, or I just finished episode 4. I believe there's 10 out. So you got 10 episodes of these women who are friends in Utah and were TikTok stars before this show, and the drama is very fascinating.
All right. I didn't have that one on the bingo card.
I figured you probably hadn't even heard of it.
I've seen what is it on? Is it on? What's it?
It's on Hulu. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Disney Plus,
so I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen the promo on like Hulu, I think.
Yeah, like I watch it on Disney Plus because I have like the package where they're linked, so everything is in that app. But it is a Hulu show.
I am binging Hacks. It was something that Ashley told me about, and she thought I would really, really like it. And she was exactly right about it. I love it. I think it's very well written. I think it's very funny. It's just there's a lot of layers to it. It's different than what you might think once you start. But the premise of the show is basically an older female comedian in LA in Las Vegas who's had a long-standing residency, and she's starting to let's just say kind of come to the end of the road that way. And then she gets paired with a young comedy writer who lost her job, and it just kind of flows from there. And it's delightful, and I'm loving it. And I think I'm on the last season now. Are there 4 seasons, Ashley? Because I think I'm
yeah,
into the last
season. I believe this is season 4. I could be wrong, and it could be season 5. But I'm all caught up on Hacks, and definitely, I'm so happy Mary Kay liked it. I pitched it to Mary Kay based on, in the pilot episode, the line that Deborah, if ever anyone who's watched Hacks will remember, tells Ava she didn't get fired because the joke she made online was too offensive. She got fired because it wasn't funny enough. And that is exactly like mine and Mary Kay's. I knew she would crack up at that and totally get it 100%. And I'm glad my recommendation was proven. I wasn't talking it up too much.
Oh, it's so good. I just think the writing is fabulous, and the relationship between these two comedians is fantastic. So I would highly recommend it to you too, Dan. You got to watch it.
Yeah, you told me about that one, I think before a pod at one point, or maybe after a pod. And so, yeah, it's definitely on my list. The problem is we go down these rabbit holes in my household. So we watched, on Ashley's recommendation, we finally watched The Pit, which was great. And so now we've kind of just sort of we've been rewatching Scrubs, which is amazing still, somehow holds up. I mean, I think that show was like early 2000s, and yet it's still an incredible show. So we've been watching that. And so, yeah, I'll get back to Hacks here at some point.
That's fair. The other show I told Dan he needs to watch is The Rehearsal, because it is such a Dan show. Nathan Fielder has a very specific type of humor. I don't know. I just know Dan would vibe with it. I'm watching the season of that. That's not quite a binge. There's only like 5 episodes out, and I think it's the season finale already. But this season, he is essentially doing all these elaborate rehearsals to figure out why planes have crashed in the past and what might help them. And one episode, the 3rd episode of the season, you start with these people have cloned dogs and elaborate experiments with the dogs, and then suddenly he's portraying Captain Sully's whole life later on in the episode. Like, it is mind-blowing. It is the craziest thing I've watched. I want to talk about it all the time, so that's my other recommendation lately.
Yeah, I'll throw this one out there too if you're looking for kind of a weird comedy. And you've got to be a certain, if you're a Tim Robinson fan, Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson, it's a super quick watch. They only did 2 seasons. It's on Netflix. It's called Detroiters. And they're running an ad agency. It's not, there's a little I think you should leave in it, but it's not like a sketch show. It's actually like a half-hour kind of sitcom type show. It's if you like the Tim Robinson, Sam Richardson pairing, that's a good one. And like I said, they only did 2 seasons. It's quick, easy. I enjoyed that one. I think it was on Netflix when I watched it. I don't know if it's still out there, but there you go. All right. That was a good pod. 10 things that Mary Kay is thinking and a bunch of things that we're all watching. That'll do it for this edition of the podcast. If you're not subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, get subscribed. If you're not following us on YouTube, it's Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Subscribe to that. Of course, follow us on Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk. Twitter is Orange Brown Talk. And if you're not a Football Insider subscriber, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.